Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a mini-sode of Baka. What's a mini-sode of Baka? We haven't seen one of those in a long time. Well, that's true. Usually we're a podcast where every 2 weeks we come together, we talk about an anime we've watched, we do it in a book club format, we let you talk about it. Every once in a while we have more we want to talk about. And so we do what we call a mini-sode, where for a while we just ramble and talk about anything we want to talk about, usually anime related, and definitely anime related for this episode, which you should know since you've clicked on it. That's Rado playing. Anyway, to do so, I need the help of my co-host, and we don't have time for fancy introductions. So, hey, there's Jeremy, there's Jason, and there's me, Troy. And we're here to talk about Trigun versus Trigun Stampede. If you listened to our Trigun Stampede episode last week, you know that that's really all we wanted to talk about, but we filled 2 hours with something else. Waiting for this week. And yes, it has been a week. We just cut our hair and our beards to the exact same styles as last week and changed it back into those clothes. Didn't wash them. And now we're ready.
Wait. Got that smell.
Gotta keep my funk ready for this argument.
That's right.
Okay, guys.
This is getting out of hand.
Also, we need to mention we have no way prepared for this. We have no format. We have no idea what we're about to do.
I know. I was wondering.
Okay, so actually, to be fair, this was my idea. So last week we did a review of Trigun Stampede, the new Trigun that just came out. Today so in that episode we attempted to not compare the two. We wanted to judge it on its own. I gave it a decent score. Jeremy hates it.
Yeah.
And so this week we want to
I was there too as well. Jeez.
Were you?
I gave it a
Okay.
I thought that
Yeah,
was good.
Troy gave it a middle of the road. I made my night. Okay, I'm so happy. Anyway, so this week what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of do a run through of the things that we liked between the two, what we didn't like, what we thought didn't work, and why we might like one character from one better than the other, and where things could have been improved.
Should we start with like general, or do you want to go like by character?
I have a couple mental notes, so if you don't mind, I'll start off with questions.
Yeah. Oh, Jason in charge episode.
Ooh.
It'll be fun.
Deep breaths, everyone. Here we go. Yeah, you're the boss.
All right.
Do it.
So tell me, the first core of Trigun, and that's how we'll refer to them: Trigun and Trigun Stampede. The first core of Trigun missing, or at least being compressed in Trigun Stampede. How did you feel about that, Troy? Go.
I don't feel it's anywhere in Trigun Stampede.
There's a few plot points, but yes, you're right.
Like
they're basically all
the
that time.
Nebraskas also show up. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And
There's also the bandits. It's the same bandits, basically. It's just they don't have their leader.
they
and
don't
they're
have
not
the
important.
leader. And yeah, they take 5 seconds to get rid of. They're just existed.
It's a cameo.
Yeah, it's a cameo. And honestly, guys, I know the second one's like where all the action is, but I really love that first core of Trigun. And so it not really existing in Stampede is most of my issue with Stampede. Because it wins in cool fights. I think it wins in villains and explanation, like lore and stuff like that. I think it can win there. But man, the heart's gone.
Yeah. It wins, I think, in some villains. Because villain motivation isn't really that great in Trigun Stampede, especially not the ones we're confronted with. Like, you have some standouts like Zazie the Beast and Knives, but as far as the rest of them go, like, they're not really that impressive. Whereas if you look at regular old original Trigun, all of these minions have a distinct purpose. They have one goal ahead of them, and that's it's unified. But that wasn't your question initially, so I don't want to go and get into the weeds with
Yeah,
that.
hold on, Jason. Just a tip from guy who runs the podcast to guy who runs the podcast. You have to rein him in. He will run wild.
I'm gonna
Okay,
try. I'll
So
try.
here, let me reframe the question a little bit, right? So
Mm.
we don't really find out much about Vash's background until basically halfway through Trigun. In this one, we're introduced to the concept of who he is, why he's there, and what his struggle is in like the first 2 episodes. How do you feel it was presented better in Trigun?
I mean, go first this time.
Well, no. That's a question directly to you. I'm trying to
Cool.
frame the question so you don't go too far out.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on that first core, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think it actually hurts it. I think that Trigun Stampede introducing all these things, showing all these secrets, we don't get a chance to develop our own perspective on who Vash is. We have no preconceived notions of this character when we're given his background because it's immediate. And because of that, we don't have the same connection that you get with Vash in the original Trigun. In the original Trigun, you watch this dork, and that's all he is at the beginning. And your viewpoint characters, Meryl and Millie, especially Meryl, really is calling him out on this. And you're like, wait a minute, how is this guy the danger? Why is everybody so afraid of him? Why isn't there this bounty on his head? He's just a lovable dweeb. What's going on here? But then you see like these little glimpses that there is more. And I think the whole first core is about letting you slowly get introduced, not just to Vash, but to all the characters.
So here's a question for you. If we didn't have Trigun, right?
Okay.
Do you feel this is bad character introduction on itself? Because there are plenty of other anime that I can talk about that we learn a lot about the main character in the first couple episodes.
I don't think it's default bad. I don't think that it's just automatically a bad way to do things.
So you think it was done better, but it's not exactly bad.
Yes, I think that I think it has been done better, and really all it is just, are we starting? There's a term for it where you do a lot of in media res. I think is maybe the term for it, where you do a lot of flashbacks, and especially at the very beginning, like you open with a flashback to try and preface what's going on here, to give you some setting. Maybe I'm totally getting the reference of in media res wrong, but I think that's what it's called. And so I know that this is a standard technique that has been used. It's a typical one, a common one. So there's nothing per se wrong with that technique. I do think that because of my connection to Trigun, I can't help but be frustrated that they're revealing something so soon. But standing on its own, I think that what was revealed, I don't know, it felt cheap to me.
Okay.
Story-wise, it just felt cheap.
Go ahead, Troy.
The first core of the original Trigun is almost entirely a character study, slowly revealing that Vash is a layered, nuanced character. He's not just a crazy psycho dweeb. He's also a kind, soft-hearted man, but he's also a scary dude when he needs to be, and also sad and depressed. Like he had all these layers. I talked about that when we did our original Trigun. He's had all these layers. Whereas this one's like, hey, Stampede is like, hey, here's Vash. He's sad. He's lonely. Okay, that's not all you need to know about him.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And that's just Vash. There's also Wolfwood. Like, he gets introduced in the first core, so we get to know him. We get to see relationships develop. Okay.
But what I want to go through is, like, in this first town of Jorah Rock, right? In this is how I felt in Trigun, is that the town could be any throwaway town. And the destruction of buildings really didn't matter. Nobody died. And the Nebraska sun was so large that it was hard to take him seriously.
Yeah.
In this one, there felt to be a connection between Vash and the town, or at least it made a better connection in my opinion. And then also the stakes of the town being destroyed and the aftermath felt like really good consequences for Vash failing to save them. And so, but what did you guys think of the difference between Trigun Draw Rock and this Draw Rock? Troy, why don't you go first?
I will say with Stampede, we don't get so many standalone episodes. There's more like 3 or 4 arcs, right? And so you get 3 episodes in Genora Rock. I think it's 2 in the original. You get Vash setting up, and then they do the bounty on him, and then he hits to take out the Nebraska guy at the very end. But even in the chase, like when they chase him through the town, it just felt like that. Vash's philosophy is shown through that chase. Like he can beat all these guys. He's like goofing off as they chase him, whereas Vash in Stampede is literally running for his life and trying to escape. And it's like, oh, I guess they don't like me very much. I can't really call either one better, but of course I'm going to go with the rose tinted nostalgia if it's a tie.
What about you, Jeremy?
For me, that village was never actually a super important part of the story to me. Like as far as where I look back and I hit high points in the anime, that's just a medium one in the original series. I didn't mind what they did with it in as far as like his relationship with it. I did have one major problem with it, and that was that they had a pregnant lady leading the vanguard charge of everything everywhere. That was driving me nuts. I was
Mama
like, you
bear
can command
syndrome.
them. Yeah. I was like, you can command them, command all these people, but don't throw yourself up and down stairs trying to chase Vash and everybody else. But anyways, I don't know. I don't know if I have too much to say about the comparison of those two.
So, okay, so one stark difference I did notice, moving on a bit, is especially here in Draw Rock, in Trigun Stampede, there was a lot more gore and a lot more on-screen death than in Trigun. How did you guys feel about that aspect of the show?
I thought that was weird. I understood when they started doing that this anime is trying to be something different. At first, I thought, oh, this is going to be a more gritty, realistic horror version of this. But I don't think they actually followed through with that, especially when they got powers and they started leaping around and doing crazy cool stuff, which to me felt more like we were going into a shonen type story. But I don't know. I have a taste for when an anime adds that bit of realism and there is a little bit of gore. I don't mind that at all. I think it actually adds quite a bit. But the original Trigun was going for something different. And if there was a lot of gore in it, I think Vash would have been considered more of a failure than he was. I think he succeeded enough in the original to where you didn't really have gore. It hardly ever happened. And this Vash failed a lot, and that's why we got gore.
So what do you think, Troy?
One of my favorite things about original Trigun is Vash's principles. It's not just like a pacifism. It's every single life is sacred, and there's no cost I won't pay to protect every single life. To the point where he begs men not to kill each other if that's his only way of handling the situation. So it was jarring to watch this Vash with death happening around him. And he's saying stuff like, I won't kill. And he's upset about death, but he's also like, yeah, but these things do happen. It never takes the time. At the end, seeing him as a Vash who's becoming the Vash we'll know and building towards that, I'm okay with, but they also never really they didn't get there. It's such an important, to me, because I've never read the manga, it's the core of Trigun is that philosophy. And it's not that I agree with that philosophy or disagree with the philosophy. It's just the exploration of it. Even the silly episodes are talking about, is there a time when it's okay to kill? All this stuff. And from Vash's point of view, the answer is always no. but I loved how they were honest about it to the point where Vash ends up killing somebody eventually. And then having, can I keep my philosophy once I've made that mistake? That was such a great philosophical debate the show has with itself over 24 episodes. Whereas this Vash is just like, I have this one principle, and it's not, I'm never challenged in it. No one's challenging me on it. One guy, there's 12-year-olds telling me I'm wrong, but who cares what he thinks? It just, and then when I say this doesn't have the heart of Trigun, that's what I mean. That philosophical debate that is weaved from the silly episodes of Trigun to the dark undertones of major character death. That's what makes Trigun special to me, and it's gone from Stampede.
I don't know if it's gone. I mean, he's constantly talking about how he wants to save people and that he won't kill.
He's so passive in Stampede that him, even when he says that, I'm like, do something. You're right there.
Mhm.
So, in speaking of Vash, one of the things that really caught my attention right away, he has no gun in his robot arm.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
I thought it was dumb. Why do you even call it Trigun if you don't give him 3 guns? And if we are going to talk about it being like, well, this is clearly being presented as a prequel in the timeline, an alternative timeline prequel.
Right.
Those are the values Vash always had.
Wait, where's his third gun?
It's the Angel Arm.
The Angel Arm, which is the first gun transform into a new gun.
Okay.
Yeah. But the original Vash in the original Trigun, he always had that value that you were talking about before. So if this is a prequel, he should still always have that value. He shouldn't get to that value by the end. So that makes it even.
He's what, a little over 150 years old in Stampede, but in Trigun he's only about 130.
Right, which means it's an alternative timeline. Like it's
right.
alternate.
Yeah. So this is
I'm just saying that like that explanation, I don't think it fixes the problem. Like it's not enough for me even to see it as like a positive, like, hey, they got there, because it's not actually his real value. You know, it's something that they're just trying to get him there. It was never his to begin with. He had a variation of it.
I did like the exploration of, is it in Stampede, whereas is it out of love or guilt? Whereas Trigun, it was, I was taught by the person I care about the most the value of life, and I stick to that and hold to that. Whereas this one was like, do you stick to that out of guilt, or do you stick to that out of actually feeling that? And that was cool, but they didn't go deep into it. They just had someone call it out and then never had it answered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know it's burning on both your guys' tongues. So Jeremy, tell me what differences between Meryl.
Oh God.
Wait, hold on. You gotta weigh in on Vash too. Well, you need to give the counterpoint.
Oh, okay, so you know me. I'm not a big fan of silly anime. So the first half of Trigun was tough for me to watch, because here's this, they've got the caricature moments, he's running around, being goofy. In this one, the goofiness was definitely toned down. And also when he's running around or, dodging bullets, it seems, and I think it's mostly the nature of the animation, it seems purposeful. It seems as if he's moving with purpose. And I like that more. I also liked, but I will say that I liked his explanations for get in the moment when someone's about to kill someone else, his reasons for why they shouldn't do it in Trigun better than this one, because in this one it just felt like he's demanding that they don't kill each other, and then it's like, it's wrong to take a life, or you don't it's not your right to do it. In Trigun it was explored a lot better, I think.
I do also, before we go on to tomorrow, I gotta call out Johnny Young Bosch's voice acting, because it's hilarious to me that in the 90s he sounds like this, especially when he does like the more dramatic scenes, like this wizened 150-year-old man who's dropping truth bombs on people, about don't kill and stuff. In now 20 to 30 years later, he's doing Stampede and he sounds like a teenager. I honestly was like, is this Vash not 150 years old? Is he just like a 25-year-old guy? Because he had that cadence in his voice. And also, he never did any crazy laughs that made me laugh. And I miss that. I do like that they brought the voice actor back. It was just so weird to me that their choice for him was to play Vash in a younger tone than I'm used to. Whereas when Johnny Young Bosch was young, he played Vash with this highly mature, sometimes, tone.
Yeah.
Okay, Meryl.
Meryl's dead. Like, Meryl's just gone. This is not Meryl. And I think the reason for this is because Meryl existed before and this time to be the audience's window into the anime. And so beforehand, she had all the suspicions and all of the, the doubt towards Vash. And having Millie to be her foil allowed her to be this negative, more pessimistic, driven character. But if you take Millie away and you take away all of the hidden secrets, we don't have any doubt about who Vash is. We know exactly who he is from the beginning of episode 1. So there's no reason for suspicion. There's no reason for the viewer's opinion of Vash to ever be in doubt. Like, we should see Vash and be like, yeah, he's a good guy. We know he's a good guy and he doesn't really have any secrets. He's just trying to fix something that he did a long time ago or contributed to. And so what do you do with Meryl at that point? Right? That character can't be who she was before. So you have to create an entirely new character. And I can't fault them for what they did. I mean, but it is very generic to have like this goofy noob character, or this rookie that shows up. And then they still have to create a character for other things with Robert De Niro. So
Roberto.
Yeah, I know. I don't like what they did with Roberto. I wish there was some way that they could have like worked Millie into it, or even just had Meryl be on her own or something. I don't know, but this Meryl would have been fine in any other anime, I think, because she's a very generic character. I've seen this character a million times, but it's not Meryl. It's a totally different character.
What about you, Troy?
I actually disagree with Jeremy here. Knowing that this is pre-jaded Meryl, because Meryl was always kind of a pessimist in the original Trigun. She was untrusting, like, this guy's an idiot. He's just he's hoodwinking us. He's literally stealing our donuts. Also, no donuts in Trigun Stampede. How dare you?
I know.
That was frustrating.
All right. But Meryl, seeing just accepting that this is a fresh-faced, new to the world Meryl, and we're giving the story that's going to turn her into the Meryl of regular Trigun, I'm down with that. I can get on. And even if they had done the same thing with Vash, and I was kind of hoping at the end they would, but they went with Eric's instead, so we're not really sure if they did. I'm fine with, hey, this is a earlier version of the character. He's not there yet. He's the I forget the actor's name, the guy who played Han Solo. That's not Harrison Ford, before he becomes the more jaded Han Solo. I was fine with that. Like, he's young and bushy-tailed, and he's going to get beaten down by life in Jabba the Hutt, and then he'll be the Han Solo I know and love, and I'm cool with that. Sorry to bring Star Wars into it, Jeremy. My bad.
Well,
go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. One counterpoint that I just want to make real quick is that because of the things that Meryl has gone through in Trigun Stampede, she's never going, like,
she'll never distrust Vash because
exactly. She's never going to be in that situation. So the relationship that she had with Vash at the beginning of original Trigun, it can't be repeated. So she's not technically in the same place.
But that's a plot point and not a character trait. And I can't worry about the plot points. I can accept that this is a different storyline. I just want the character traits to get on point, and they did. And the haircut.
Well, it seems like what it did is it pushed her to the end of original Trigun, because she has the jaded personality
You-
with
you
the
know-
trust of Vash.
We haven't seen her around Vash. You're right. So yeah, we're not gonna see her soften back up, right? By
Right.
the experience of Vash.
Yeah, because
And
nothing
that I can
bad
give you.
happened from Vash. I
doesn't-
mean, I guess she could start with like, oh, you destroyed July, because she wasn't there. She didn't see what exactly happened. So there could be a misunderstanding, and she might have to work through that. But that's the only explanation I can think of to why she might have any kind of issue with Vash.
Like she's assuming Vash the Stampede's dead, so who's this imposter using his name?
Right. That's
Yeah.
possible.
And there doesn't seem to be any romantic connection between them in Stampede. Which
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
that was a disappointment. But I did like this version being spunky, but I kind of I like them both for different reasons. And so I can't really say one was better than the other, because and the reason is because for me, I see them as completely different characters. Like they share the same name, but that's about it.
I would say
No.
that's accurate.
I really easily connect them as an earlier version of a character who's going to become the later version of a character.
If she gets forced into being insurance, that would be hilarious.
I would.
Because she's so bad at being a reporter.
And also, I called out in the episode and made everyone drink for it, but Roberto was the catalyst for that. He's that jaded side of Meryl that's missing, and when he dies, I think she adopts that because of his death. And I guess he had points.
Right. Okay, so really big one here. Wolfwood, and I want to go first. I think Wolfwood in Trigun is
A million times better.
Oh my God, yes.
for one, I don't think he gets enough screen time in Trigun, because he disappears for episodes at a time.
Mhm.
I also think his character motivations are a little simple. It's just, I get hired by Knives because they're threatening my orphanage, so I need to go deliver him. I liked this version a little better just because of the backstory. Now the 12-year-old thing makes me a little weird, but I do like that. Hey, here's this forced super soldier that the super soldier program didn't go very well for him. And he's got his own things going on. Not only is he connected to the orphanage because that's where he came from, his best friend is also getting treated this way. He's got the conflict of forcibly being an adult all of a sudden, and also being under the thumb of Knives and to do his bidding. I like the change, and I also hated in Trigun that he goes walking past. For one, he gives up his convictions in the one time that he's going to get shot up, which was so dumb. And then he just walks past Vash as he's got bullet holes throughout his body and just goes, "Oh, you get him next time." And then he goes and dies. And it's like, it just felt dumb and hollow.
God
Wow.
dang!
Fighting words.
I had to remember we were PG there for a minute. I was overtaken by anger.
Ugh.
I'm gonna let Jeremy go first because I know that scene is like his favorite scene too.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to completely disagree with you.
So, before you get going, just as
Okay.
a caveat, his dying scene was very well done. I did like all the stuff that he's going through. I like that he wasn't ready to die yet. His repentance, all of that, really good stuff. The leading up to it and the dropping of his convictions in his last gunfight, I thought were dumb.
Okay. Now, what you call dropping of his convictions, I call Vash winning the ethical debate.
Yeah, and it got him
And
killed.
That's what Vash does. And
Get
that's
people killed. Perfect.
Yes, and that's part of the core of Trigun is Vash is an altruist to a fault, and it causes everyone around him to die, and it causes him to nearly die. And so Wolfwood is the prime example of that, because Wolfwood is like, he is this exceptional guy who has been trained from childhood for like the last 10 years by this Chapel guy to be this amazing hitman, gunman. He doesn't want to do it. He's a good guy at his core, but he has to do it in order to protect the orphanage and protect the kids, because he's like, I can't remember if he owns the orphanage or what it is, but it's his orphanage that he's trying to keep these kids safe in. And so for him to actually, the concept, the story of him taking care of Vash because it's a job and he doesn't have any connection to him or care about him at all, but he's getting to know him and he's listening to the debate, and he's starting to understand Vash's reasoning and he's starting to agree with it. Then they have that big fight with Zazie, over Zazie, that he killed Zazie. Like, all this stuff is building up where you have that was him fighting the ethical debate with Vash when he killed Zazie. And then after that, and the fact that he lost the ethical debate because he knew he was wrong. Even though he was kind of right, he was also wrong. And he was convinced because he himself internally is an altruist as well. It's proof that Vash is right, that humans are good, right? And so, and then when you have the scene with Millie, I mean, how can you not feel the weight of that, right? Like, Wolfwood and Millie have this relationship now, and it's always kind of like alluded to, but then it's just outright put in your face, like, yeah, she stayed over and she's sitting in the bed weeping because she knows he's going to die. She knows he's not coming back, but she won't even leave the house. Like, all these things just add to this moment. And then when you see him, he does not shoot Chapel. He shows mercy because he's trying to, believe that someone can change, believe that saving a life is more important. And you see that he's right too, because later Chapel gets killed because he's angry that he was forced to kill his pupil. He wasn't going to kill him. He was only killed because Legato forced him to. So Vash was technically correct, but then also technically wrong because of Legato's meddling. Like, it's a very complex thing that's happening here. And then with all of that, the reason he walks by Vash and just says, you'll do better next time, is because he knew he lost and he had nothing to offer except, I know you're right, and I'm just, my job is done. Like, everything is over. But then at that last moment, like you're saying, like that death scene, that's one of the best death scenes I've ever seen, because he goes up and down and he's talking, he's fine, he's ready to go, he's mad at God, and then all of a sudden he shifts to that moment before death where the person is like, wait, I don't want to die, and then it's too late. And then we're cutting back to poor Millie screaming, and I'm like, this is amazing. The way they set this up with the thread of the argument and then the scenes and just everything that happened is just like, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
Now it's my turn. No, how am I going to follow that up? I got emotional listening to Jeremy. The only thing I wanted to say, which now feels really dumb, in regular Trigun, Knives is Vash's opposite in that I have an ideal and I'm good and all lives are sacred, and Knives is I have an ideal and that all lives have no value and I'm going to do whatever I want with them and I'm evil. But Wolfwood is just as good as a person as Vash, but without any ideals. So he's making the sacrifices, he's letting the innocents die to save children. Like, the fact that he jumps out of the car in the very first episode to save someone without even remembering to bring his gun, that is his instinct. But he's also, okay, I'm going to work with the bad guys to protect kids. I will pay those costs. I will make those sacrifices. And then, like Jeremy went into, then he has this big philosophical debate with Vash until he's brought around and tries that method and is proven both wrong and right at the same time. I was handling Vash and Stampede. I was like, okay, it's their own take. It's fine. Wolfwood's coming. Everything's fine. Wolfwood shows up, and he's not a good person.
Right.
He is deep down, right? That's Vash. Vash is like deep down he's a good person, but Wolfwood was a good person, undebatably in regular Trigun. He just was willing to do bad things to do the good, and then having to battle that being gone, and again missing that heart of Trigun from Stampede, and not being there in Wolfwood. I was upset about Wolfwood in Stampede. I was like, okay, Vash isn't what I want, but it's fine. It's a separate thing. Wolfwood wasn't right, and I was like, how do I do this? How do I handle this? I had a more visceral reaction to Wolfwood being different, and then they're like, oh, and he's 12, and I'm like, oh, at least he has the cross. Like, at least they gave him that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of the core about what makes Wolfwood awesome is his relationship with Millie.
Yeah.
That slow burn. And if you have him as a 12-year-old, you can't even do that in the next season.
Yeah.
Like, it's just gone.
Well, it's
I
Japan.
had that conversation.
It is. That's true. Yeah.
All right. So, moving on. The last character I want to touch on, because this is supposed to be a mini-sode, is Knives. And the reason I wanted to touch on Knives is because my big problem in Trigun is I didn't see him anything other than I'm better than humans, so all humans need to die. Like, that was the whole motivation that I could see. In this, it's not only nuanced, but it's also partly revenge and partly liberation of his people. And also the fact that we learn more about his people. But anyways, sticking it just to Knives, I felt this Knives was much better and much cooler looking than in Trigun. But Troy, why don't you start? What do you think of Knives?
You're right. Knives is much better in Stampede. He's more developed. His motivations are better. However, asterisk, he in regular Trigun he is he's almost mustache twirly evil, but that works as part of the philosophical debate again because he is a character who in no way deserves to live. There is no redeeming qualities. There is nothing there, and yet. So when you put that up against now Vash's idealism that everyone deserves to live, that's the ultimate clash of his thing. How do I stop this guy who's as powerful as me? The only way to stop him is to kill him, but I've sworn I won't kill, even though I just did it a week ago. And now, do I even deserve to get back on this idealism? Am I just a hypocrite if I let him live? What do I do? How do I handle that? Yeah, there's also this cool, beautiful visual battle at the end of regular Trigun. Stampede was beautiful as well. So I like Knives better as a character in Stampede, and there's almost no argument there with you. You're 100% right. Again, that philosophical debate is why I watch Trigun, and it's why I've watched it multiple times in my life. It's not an anime I just watched and was like, oh, that was cool. I remember it fondly. I come back to Trigun, and I love that ending because it's the ultimate test of Vash's ideals, and we don't get that in Stampede yet. Stampede's not done.
Well, I mean, if that's the excuse.
You could have said the same thing after one core of Trigun, though. Like, hey, this didn't do all this stuff. And, well, yeah, it didn't. You need the second half of Trigun for Trigun to make its full argument.
Well,
to be fair.
I mean, maybe. Okay. So I have a slightly different perspective on Knives. There's enough scenes in the anime, original Trigun, to where you understand that Knives was being physically abused, not sexually, but physically abused by one of the crew members. I just wanted to specify that for clarity. He was being punched and kicked and beat up. Vash was not. Knives protected Vash when it was going to happen to him. So if you watch the behavior of the two of them, that's one of the first places where they diverge and they start to have a different perspective in the world. Vash is sheltered. He is protected. And because of that, he develops these ideals that are so altruistic, they're unreasonable. Knives is not. So then you see them getting their haircut, right? Vash is getting his haircut, and Knives is upset. Why? there's a ton of implication that he wants to have just as close a relationship with Rim, but doesn't believe that he can. So he's jealous of Vash. So he goes and cuts his own hair. He's not happy with how it turned out because it's not right. It's not right. It didn't turn out to look just like Vash's, right? But he kept that into his adulthood. Right? It's like a scar of how he's not the favored one. And so you have this hanging over him, and then immediately the two of them get into this argument over the spider and the butterfly, which is where they completely depart. They completely go opposite directions. And at this point, they solidify. And, you know, Vash is not going to forgive him. He's not going to forgive Vash. And neither of them are going to agree. And that's the moment where, in my mind, Knives becomes a little bit, I wouldn't say sympathetic, but at least comprehensible, right? Like, he is still a mustache twirling villain in his approach later, but I understand his foundation. I understand like where he came from. He's a jealous kid that turned around and went to extremes because he's got to prove his brother wrong because his brother's the favored one. And even up to now, I mean, like, if you watch when Vash shoots him, his expression, it's like it's unthinkable. Because once again,
I love the scene when
you
Vash,
shot me again.
when Vash gets his aim to the arm, he's like, "Are you pointing that at
Yes.
me?"
Yes.
I love that scene.
Yeah. And so there is something there with Knives in the original Trigun where he has one goal besides wiping out humanity. Like, that's a secondary concern to him. His primary concern is making Vash admit he's wrong. And that's what all of that is over, is like a spat between two brothers. And I find that to be really, really compelling, really intriguing. Probably because I've never had siblings. So seeing something like this blown out of proportion seems somewhat, you know, fantastically believable to me.
You think it's also, if I take away what Vash loves, I'll be the only thing he loves left, and then
yeah,
our relationship will be together
You
again.
could infer that.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
All right, so there's two more topics I want to hit on before we end.
Sure.
The first one's going to be Vash didn't kill anyone directly in Stampede, but in Trigun, he was forced. His hand was forced in order to protect and save Marilyn Millie, and he had to kill Legato. We didn't get that scene here yet, but I assume we may not, just because of the arc that it's going, or unless, you know, Knives is not really dead, which in my opinion, I think he's not really dead. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because for me, I felt that was a pretty important scene in the whole philosophical debate, and to leave that out in Stampede felt like there was some core missing.
I would say that was the central, most important point. Like, it's right there with when Knives killed the spider to save the butterfly. Like, those are two absolutely pivotal moments in that argument.
I think because Stampede is approaching as, again, it's not a prequel to Trigun, but it's a prequel to its own story from our point of view of Trigun. That the yet is a big deal. However, what I think is missing from Stampede is Knives wanting Vash to kill. That's not there. He wants Vash not to care about the humans. He does tell him to kill, but it's not like a literal goal of Knives that I need to make him kill a human, and I will come up with every master plan I can think of to make that happen. Instead, it's say, hey, you have access to the core, the super important core that I need. So that's why I need you. But Trigun, it's literally just, I'm gonna make you kill someone. It's the last thing I do. It's the most important thing. Hey, I built you a cannon for killing people, and I will make you use it. That's I think is super important, again, to that fundamental core of Trigun, and is missing in Stampede. And it could show up. That could be when Knives comes back. He's like, okay, I overstepped. We need to go back to square one and make him kill somebody. Then we'll be on track.
Okay, because I think that's a big difference when we're talking about the philosophy of Trigun. That scene is super, super important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me wonder, Troy, I think you might be correct in Stampede. That particular philosophical argument doesn't seem to be the focal point, but rather, will you save humans or will you save your own kind?
Yeah,
And
and who deserves to exist, and yeah,
right. It's not so much I will not kill. It's who deserves to exist over the other. And I think because that's the philosophical debate, I think that's why that scene wasn't in there. However, um, I do find that scene like super pivotal in that relationship. And then, so the last thing I wanted to touch on, which I thought was brilliant in Stampede, is the exploration of the plants, who they are, what they're doing there. And it's hinted at in Trigun, and it's not explored, and it's not, there doesn't seem to be this huge told ramification for the wounds that he, like, we see the effects of the wounds that he takes, but we're not sure why he can't regenerate. We're not sure why him and Knives are different. And then there's that one scene where he visits a plant and the thing like comes to the glass, and you're like, are all of them aliens? Like, we don't get that explicit exploration that we do in Stampede, and I thought it was done much better in Stampede. What about you, Troy?
yes.
Okay, you agree with me then.
I do.
Okay.
With the caveat that that's not what I watched Trigun for. That's more like background lore. I can't say it again. It's about that, but yes, I was cool seeing that lore. When the first one in Stampede opens up and you can actually see the fingers and the face, and like there's a real person in there, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. I'm pretty sure I had to read that on a wiki to know that plants were living things. Even because you had asked after finishing Ringo Dragon, like I had some questions and what is a plant, and I was telling you and I was wrong, and I'm like, God, I don't remember where I even know that. I must have read it off of something. So Stampede does do a better job there.
What about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, as far as establishing the background, the story, the lore, it's doing a much better job. And also, even in that, post-credit sequence, basically, where you've got the call from Earth, that's straight, hearkening from the manga. I'm not saying that scene is in the manga, but dealing with Earth is an important part of where things are going next with the manga. And so, if that's something that I actually really like in anime, is when they give you a more fleshed out backstory and explain things. So yeah, that's a quality I definitely like in the new
Perfect. So I'll chalk that up to you guys agree with me on everything, and I will.
Hold on, I'm about to give you some nice little prize here.
Prize? Here we
go. The original manga author of Trigun, he did review the story of Stampede, and he did approve it. He did feel it met everything that a Trigun needed to be. So it's not like just some random fan fiction that has no connection to original Trigun. This was written by other people, but he was brought in to review the story, make any changes, tell them anything they couldn't do, and he was like, no, this is good, this works.
I wonder if he was more like, I guess the publisher's paying me a lot of money, go ahead.
That's a very Jeremy thing to say.
Last thing, which I'm sure we all agree, origin story of his gun is dumb in Stampede.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, it was so, in Trigun. It was so cool.
I didn't hate it.
Really?
Oh, come on.
I didn't hate it because he shoves the cube into it, and then I'm like, oh, so now it's the gun. And I don't know if that's true because we didn't get to see it again. I thought that's what they were doing.
Knives explicitly created those guns for them.
He disappears for what? How many years?
A year.
A year. Oh, also that's something I need to mention about original Trigun. Vash's loneliness and the fact that that's the reason he keeps going to people, even though it puts them in constant danger and destroys towns, but he can't stay away from people because he literally has a fear of being alone. That's missing from Stampede.
No, they touched on it. He literally is like after the crash, he's huddled under something,
He
and
wanted
he's
to
like,
die.
"Please don't leave me alone."
Oh,
He
I
li-
thought he was like,
he
I
li-
just want to die. Please let me die.
He did say
No.
that.
But he was also saying, "Please don't leave me alone. I'm so lonely."
But so in regular Trigun, they show him like he follows him into adulthood, which is very fast for apparently plants. But yeah, in that year, like he spends a year waiting for his brother just to come out. He just sits there for a year alone, falling into misery, and so that's why he travels to town and people to people, even though he doesn't need to. He could just stay away and keep all these people safe, but he has this compelling need to socialize and a fear of loneliness, and that's just this big flaw in him that you don't realize as you watch the wandering hero wander, but it's actually a big character flaw of his.
Yep.
Any other last minute points you guys want to bring up?
I do have a couple.
Oh my god.
Can we keep it to 2?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of them is I actually, as much as I think it detracted a little bit from the anime because it wasn't allowed to focus on the story that it was telling as much because it was so busy doing cameos. I liked the cameos. I thought it was cool to see Legato. I thought it was cool to see the bandits. I really liked what they did with what was his name? It was the guy that was a giant robot that Wolfwood killed, where, you know, in the end it was just a pair of legs and he fired off rockets. It's like Gray 9 Lives, I think is his name.
Okay.
And the fact that was, I think that was the robots that were mass produced that showed up with the doctor in the first arc to take the plant from that town.
Mm.
Right? Because it had the doctor in its hand. So it was the same size and it was a big robot. But then later you see there's a bunch of them.
Right.
Yeah, and some of the redesigns with the characters were pretty cool. Like E.G. Mine, I liked what they did. They like Mad Maxed it up, but they kept the original Mine shell, which was such a 90s silly design. But it looked cool like this. So I did like what they did there. And as we talked about in the episode itself, like what they did with Zazie. Is that Zazie? Is that right? Zazie was fantastic. So I really liked the cameos and stuff. That was cool. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
I have one last thing.
All right, what is it?
Yeah, where's the music?
You remember regular Trigun at the split? They always had the guitar.
Yes.
You could
And
play
then it would
about it in
reverse.
the episode.
I skipped it
Yes.
every time.
What?
Every
it's like
time.
a few seconds.
Yeah,
I know. Because as soon as I see the blue picture of him, if I hit the skip by 10 seconds, it immediately ends it and it goes into the episode again.
Criminal.
Oh,
Every time. It's so cringe.
it's not cringe, it's 90s. Like, okay, when I first watched this anime, it was new and it was actually shown to me by like my cousin's husband. I got to go over and hang out with him and watch this as a teenager, and I was like, oh man, this is so awesome. And so I never forgot that, like, that little commercial interlude thing. It was just so cool. You have like chips and salsa and just hanging out. Yeah,
Awesome.
very nostalgic.
So I watched it with my wife on Adult Swim, and we watched it together. It was this big thing we watched together. We both love Vash. And then she fell asleep the night of the final episode. She missed the final episode. So we had to wait for it to air it again. Okay, we watched it again. And she fell asleep again. She didn't see the ending for like 5 years. Eventually, I was like, no, we're just going to watch it. It was so weird that she just could never stay awake to watch the final episode. It was like this running gag we had.
Oh
All right, I'm good. Jason, you get to do the outro.
Alrighty. Well, if you have any thoughts on the differences of Vash the Stampede versus Trigun, or I guess Trigun Stampede versus Trigun, please feel free to leave a comment where you found this video or audio podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can also hit us up at the animebakaclub.com. And also please make sure that if you want to show some support, give us the top rating that you can wherever you found this podcast. And with that, I think
Who would win in a fight? Which Vash?
The new one.
The new one. He's more of a grappler.
Mm-hmm. And he's got the wing, and he's got like superpowers.
Yeah.
Man, I thought that's just okay.
Oh, and we are currently in the middle of watching
Bocchi the Rock.
Bocchi the Rock. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Troy, say goodbye.
Center.
Love and peace.
Thanks for listening.